because I write every other Sunday for the Wisconsin State Journal. And my column is of tips and ideas and strategies for living when, you know, your body isn't quite cooperating the way you'd like it to. And that's all right. You know what? These are the books I've written. If you care, you can come up and look at them later. It's fine, just leave them. The only thing I would like is that if you get some tape to put it on the front of the front of these, because there's, you know, Sailing with Shelley. Oh, and there's cards in the pink bag. There's 2 different cards, and you can pass those around if anybody's interested. So, and then I'm on WISC television on the 3rd Tuesday of the month. So, I think, next Tuesday, yeah, next Tuesday, right, is the third Tuesday. So, if you want to look at the noon show, you'll see me. What I've been doing is been going around and speaking to some of the groups in the community, which I love to do. And if you're with any other group, a church group or a professional group that you still belong to, and they're looking for a free speaker, I'm available. So, what I usually do is I usually talk for about 10 minutes about myself, and then I open it up for your questions, because I'm not a mind reader, and I don't know what kind of things are of interest to you. And sometimes it's related to the time of year, and sometimes it's related to your personal solution to a problem you're having right now at home, or something that you'd like ideas for. I've been writing since I was 39, and I'm 67 right now. So, been writing a few years, and okay, I'm a mother of 2 children. One of them was a classmate of Chris's. So we just reconnected, and I can't wait to tell my son tonight. My son is just turned 38, and I'm sorry, Chris, I gave away your age. We just turned 38 too. Yep, that was Andrew on the 4th. So, and I have a daughter who will be 40 in April, his sister, Jamie. I'm a grandmother of 5 children. My daughter Jamie has 3, and my son has 2. And I try to be a very active grandma, but I can't really be the active grandma I would have liked to have been, but I found other ways to be a grandma. So if that's of interest to you, I can speak on that as well. I was diagnosed at 32 with multiple sclerosis, and I was told at that time when I went into the doctor that I either had MS or brain tumor. They did some tests, they could not find a brain tumor, and they left me with the diagnosis of possible MS. And then over the years, as I continued to decline physically, then it became definitely MS. It's been a very interesting journey. Our marriage was 10 years old when I got diagnosed, and now it's 44 years old, so we have weathered many storms. And our kids were 5 and Andrew was 3. So I don't know what you remember about me, Chris, but I would sometimes go to the classrooms. I don't know if you were in the exact same class in the elementary school, but I would go like show and tell. And I would come and I would show how our big van works with the doors that open, and this was in the days of Star Wars. I was like, oh, is that cool? Because the doors open and the ramp came down, and you got to push buttons to make this happen. And my son was always, you know, the kids were the ones who were demonstrating to their classmates. I also gave scooter rides, which may have been of interest to the kids, but I mean, they loved it. So, that's, you know, I started writing. I published my first article when I was 39. It was a story that I had written. Well, I'll tell you why I got into writing, or, you know, what prompted me. I guess I'd always thought I'd like to write, but I never had any formal training, and I had one college course in creative writing, and I got a B. It was not a big deal, but I just never was much of a writer. Then I had to retire at the age of 35. I was a teacher of the deaf for the Madison Metropolitan School District. And I couldn't keep up with the demands of the job, so at 35, I retired. And I was, as you can well imagine, a little depressed because here I was. Most people were just beginning their careers, and I was not ever going to work again. So I was pretty devastated, and I wanted to be a teacher of the deaf since I was 15, and I never changed my mind. So that was quite a depressing time, and a girlfriend said, why don't we go to a psychic? So I went to the psychic with her, and my first question was, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And she said, you're going to be a writer. I was like, are you kidding me? So I thought that was kind of interesting because I'd always, thought, well, maybe I could write. But I never followed through, and I didn't write for about a year and a half. And then one day, the kids had said, Mom, you've got to get a life. And I was hanging around too much because I was always home. And they left for school one day, and I was sitting there listening to the sound of the refrigerator motor turning on and off. I'm not kidding you. I still remember what I was wearing, where I was sitting, and thinking, I cannot spend the rest of my life doing this. And we had just purchased a brand new, state-of-the-art electronic typewriter with a 15-key erasable memory. I mean, it sounds like the Dark Ages now, like a stylus and papyrus, But I went and I put a piece of paper in and I just started typing. And I wrote about what it felt like to be a mom with multiple sclerosis. And luckily I had a good friend who was a former English teacher, and after about 6 months I had the courage to show her. And she said, I think this is great. I think you could get it published. And I did. And the National MS Society published the article, and our family's picture, along with some other families that they were highlighting, was on the cover of the magazine. I was paid $150 for that article, and I was a professional writer. But then I thought, well, that's the only thing I know to write about. Well, what else will I write about? And as ridiculous as it sounds, I thought I'd have nothing else to write about. Well, one thing led to another, and I wrote something about getting ready for the holidays. And over the years, I had picked up tips of things that I had to do to change and continue to be a mom. And my first tip was this. I was making the kids lunch one day, and I was spreading peanut butter on Wonder Bread, white Wonder Bread. Could be turned in for child abuse now, but gave them Wonder Bread, and I was spreading the peanut butter, and the bread was fresh, and what happened? The bread ripped. I don't want to eat that. I don't want to eat that. And I thought, every kid does this. So I thought, well, what am I going to do about this? Because I can't go through this every day. I don't want to eat that. And if they want peanut butter, that's how it's going to come. So I put the bread in the freezer. And the next day, I pulled it out, spread peanut butter on it while it was still hard, told the kids to wash up, and by the time they got to the kitchen table, the sandwich was there and it looked like the sandwiches they wanted. So that was really my first tip. And I kept keeping track of what little modifications and things I was doing to make this work a little bit better. And I keep, doing laundry and mending clothes, making costumes, meals, grocery shopping, present shopping at the mall, things that I were having trouble with. I had to find ways to still stay involved. And that's how I started, and I ended up with 7 books. One of tips for MS, one for tips with Parkinson's, one tips for arthritis, and a home accessibility and a memory tips and dressing tips. So, you know, I had a lot of time on my hands, and the fact that the kids said, "Mom, you've got to get a life," I wish sometimes they'd listen to me as well as I listen to them. So that's, I think, about it, unless you have any other questions on this. Usually I have somebody who's got a burning question, so think about it. Is there anybody who has a question, whether it's a personal thing or, you know? Yeah, good, thank you.
About travel, do you have any suggestions for traveling with accessible ability?
Right. And this, I thank you for asking that, because I think that a lot of us would say it's too much effort. You know, I did it when I was young, and I want to do it now. And for me, leaving the comforts of home is always a stress challenge. I mean, you just saw that one. The scooter stopped working. And it's brand new. It's not even 10 days old. So I don't know, you know, and I had to let Becky go and figure out, to call the company and figure out what the message, the lights go on, blink to tell you what kind of a problem it is, but I don't know how to interpret them, so you have to call the company. So Becky's in there doing whatever, probably not in her job description, but you know, you just have to roll with the punches when you travel, because things are gonna happen. And sometimes there are things you learn from. Okay, but yeah, tips. We are leaving in about 4 weeks for a 2-week cruise. Not this one. The one that's here for Alaska is, if you have Alaska on your bucket list, we're going to Alaska with an escorted tour from Middleton Travel. And so somebody will be with us to handle all the issues of, you know, the luggage, or I don't have that pass, can you get me, you know, ferrying us from one place to another. But now Dave and I are leaving in 4 weeks to go on a 2-week cruise to the Caribbean. And we have gone on probably 15 cruises. And the reason we like them is because you have one place. You're not having to worry about transportation to and from places, restaurants that might have a bathroom in an accessible area that you can get to that would be easy for you. You've got accommodations so that you don't show up at a museum or something and it's closed for the day. They make all, you know, we know that they're gonna take care of us. And my husband gets the best vacation because there are always people there to help me. And the cruise ship we're going on in February has electric doors in the cabin. So you take your card, you know, your key card, you put it in like you would anybody, but in regular hotel rooms, and you pull it out and the door automatically opens for me. So that's very cool, because my husband gets up and wants to go out and lay in the sun and I'm not ready, he doesn't have to wait for me. I walk into the you know, the cafeteria kind of dining room, and there's always someone there to say, may I help you? Carries my tray, brings me hot coffee, and does the carrying. And also some of the things I can't see that are in the display cabinet, I can't see, they'll describe what's in there for me. So that is a vacation for the both of us, because he can do his thing. They even have a lift, because I can't walk. I only have I minimal strength in my hands. My legs don't work so much, except a little bit here. But I can't transfer, so they have one of those things to get me in and out of the pool. They help me do it. They say, what time would you like me to come back? I'll say half an hour. Then they'll come back and help me out of the pool. So, I mean, it is a perfect vacation for my husband. He can get a break from doing all of the things he, you know, has to help me with. I always plan ahead. I always am thinking of what plan A, plan B, and C. You know, what happens if you get to the airport and your flight is canceled? You know, you just sort of, but if you think that all of these details are just, I don't want to deal with them, do a vacation where you go somewhere with somebody who's leading the tour, because they'll kind of keep an eye on you. I've even had, Becky, how we doing?
Hi.
All right. All right. I got my wheels back. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So you got to let other people help you. And that's probably the biggest thing I can leave with you today, is this asking for help. And I'll get back to the travel too. But this is the most important thing I can leave you with today, because everybody I know, and I think living in Wisconsin, you are can do, you just do it. And all of you, I'm sure, have been volunteers, have done good deeds to help somebody who needs it. Sometimes you don't even know who they are. You're putting mailings together. You're doing whatever you can to be a positive spirit in the world. And now you don't want to ask anybody for help if you're like me. I don't like it. But as you can see, what do you think? Do you think Becky feels good about being able to help me solve that problem?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
I think she feels pretty darn good, and I'm sure she feels good when she has to do things to help you. When Becky is our age, I hope she remembers. Becky, you're listening?
I am.
Because I hope you listen and know that you can ask for help, because you pay it forward. And so if you need help, ask somebody. And I don't mean things like, all right, your companion or your husband or your friend is saying, I'm gonna go get a drink of water, or I'm gonna go get a cup of coffee. If you want a coffee, say, please bring me, if you don't mind, please bring me one back. Because so many people say, oh, why didn't she even offer to get me a cup of coffee? Ask her. Nobody's mind readers. Everybody's got stuff on their mind. And I learned this from my husband. He would say, I'm going into the kitchen to get a snack. And then he'd come back, and I said, well, where's one for me? He said, well, you never asked me that you want one. Of course I'd get you one. Why didn't you ask me? So we're not mind readers. We're wonderful people, but we're not mind readers. So ask for what you want. And like what happened with the wheelchair, I said to Becky, this is what we're going to do. And Becky listened, because you can't just jump in and say, Becky would have said, oh, here, let me help you, and what are we going to do, and I'm here, let me do this. I can push you. And I would say, Becky, I want, listen for a minute. So tell people, your friends, your family members, this is what kind of help I need. I told Becky to get me a chair, please, then get lifted onto the chair, because I knew I had to get out of the chair to be able to sit on the seat cushion. I was in bed for 2.5 months, 2 summers ago, because of the bed sore. So I don't want to sit on anything that is not cushioned for my sensitive derriere. So I needed to sit on the cushion. And so I said, this is what we'll do, and this is the number, and would you call them, and they need to know this. And we got it. I'm not all shook up about it. I trust that other people can help me. This was a perfect example, actually. And I'm sure Doug was happy to help me. He took extra time. Are you sure you're safe? Are you sure? And I was honest. I said, I think this will work. No, I think we need a belt over this way. So you have to be engaged, and you have to take responsibility for, your life. It's hard. And I know some of our children treat us like we're not quite capable.
Right.
We told my daughter that we bought a new van. And she said, oh, well, this will probably be your last car. So, they're 40, they're young. They don't, Does this ring a bell with any of you?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. So we feel what we feel, and it's normal. And was I mad at her, and did I argue, how dare you tell me that this is going to, she's 40 years old. What were you like when you were 40? You thought you were going to live forever. and you were going to be as vital and as energetic, and then you get older, and it's not quite what you thought, or at least, it's been an interesting journey. My mother is 90, still driving, doing a little driving at night, but we talked last night, and she says, I'm not so sure I want to be driving, especially to this area because there's no street lights. She says, I'll drive around my area, but not where it's so dark. She's also had the conversation, when you think I shouldn't be driving anymore, if you see me or you don't feel I'm safe, please say something. So we have conversations. We filled out her 5 wishes. I have to write about this because there was, I can't remember the name, but I'm going to write about it in my column. It's 5 wishes. It was started by somebody who worked with Mother Teresa, and he worked with people who were dying, and he realized that there were several wishes they had. And one of the wishes is, would you like music played if you are comatose or if you are unable to communicate? Would you like music played while you're waking hours? And what kind of music would you like? My mother hates country western. So I told her if she doesn't behave herself, I'm going to make sure it's country western. No. My mother and I have a great time, and she actually comes on these trips with us, and people ask if we're sisters. Every single cruise. So, and she's really a beautiful lady, and so I think if I looked like that at 90, I would not be unhappy. But she's very sweet and very nice, and still, thankfully, every bit is vital. So, traveling. What other tips? If you can't walk great distances, even in the airports, and my mom has taken this, when she makes her request or when she comes into the ticket counter, she gets in a wheelchair. One of the sky caps, one of the airport employees pushes her, takes her through security, puts her bag on the conveyor belt. She can walk through the, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The left, the screen. Yeah.
The scanner.
Let's see if I can do this. Would you mind doing this, or we might have a question? Thank you. That's great. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So she gets in a wheelchair. When I go through security, I can't walk. So they allow me to stay in my scooter. They take me to a area, it's not real private, it's just a little alcove, and they'll do a pat down. It's not a big deal. You know, they kind of go like this and down your legs, and they ask you if you have any appliances, or you know, if you've got pins or pacemakers or stuff like that, hardware in your body. They need to know that, and then you may or may not have to go through the that X-ray machine, whatever it is. Once I'm done getting patted down, I can go on and, you know, my husband is usually putting his shoes back on by the time I'm done, and we go on our merry way. I asked one of the people who was doing the pat down on me if she ever found anything, and she says, well, no, but my friend did, my colleague did. She found a gun in the seat cushion. Whoa. I'm thinking, oh my God, you know, the world is getting crazier than I can ever would have imagined. But anyway, so it is not a big deal. And then if you're with a guy who's pushing your wheelchair, or a woman, they will take you to your gate. If you need help getting on the plane, then they will help you onto the plane. You get to board first before all of the commotion, mothers with young children, anybody who's being escorted like a child who's got, who's traveling alone and people who need extra time, get on the plane first. Now, I get on first, usually, but because I need to be lifted into one of those aisle chairs. You've probably seen them. They're up real high, and they've got a seat and very narrow, and they lift me on those, and then they put shoulder harness this way, and across my lap, and then I look like the Silence of the Lambs without the face mask. So I'm like this. They carry me on, and then they lift me into the seat. So, and then, but the problem with that is that at the end of the flight, everybody gets off first, and then they come and get me. So if you have a quick turnaround, it can be stressful. But we've really been pretty lucky. So, you can also, well, when you get to your destination, you can also tell the flight attendant that you are going to a connecting flight and that you need one of those big driving things that they have in the airports, and they'll take you, or they'll have a wheelchair waiting for you, and then somebody else from the destination airport will wheel you to your next flight. Are there other specifics? I'm happy to answer personal questions like bathrooms and things like that. You know, nobody's going to ask, so let me tell you this. Because I need help in restrooms from a member of the opposite sex, it's very difficult for my husband to go. He will not go into a public restroom. He'll only go into a public restroom if somebody is standing at the door, like my mother, and says, my son-in-law is helping my daughter in the restroom. He is in the restroom with her. And sometimes they can keep people out. But thankfully, and I have to hope that maybe I was a positive push in this. If you'll notice at the Dane County Airport, there are unisex restrooms, family bathrooms, companion bathrooms, where it's a single room with a lockable door and a toilet, so that you can come in, and if you were traveling with someone, let's say someone has memory problems and the wife is traveling with the husband, she can't go into a man's room, and he can't really come into a ladies' room. So, or even young children, you don't want to send a 10-year-old in to the boys' room by himself. So you can use these companion bathrooms. In Dane County Airport, there is one on the first floor, and then there was one on each of the two concourses. And I like to think that maybe I had something to do with that, because I remember back probably in the early 80s, they were going to do one of the big renovations of Dane County Airport, and I went and spoke in front of the Airport Commission. And I was still walking at that time, and I remember standing up, and here were all of these men in suits, and one woman, and they were having this meeting, and I stand up and say, I have trouble, I can't go to the bathroom without some help, you know. It's not what you really, want to do, but they did put in a companion bathroom in Madison. So at least once we got to the airport, I would use the restroom, and then we would go on the plane, and then I would have to find a restroom on the returning, or on the destination. I've had some very interesting experiences, because this was not the case in many airports. This is only in the last few years, maybe 10, 15 years, that they've had them. Oh, and the bathroom here in Madison, we came to the airport, and I wanted to go and use it, the door was locked. And so we complained, and we said, why? Well, you have to call a security to unlock the door. I'm thinking, why do I have to call security? They said, well, we don't want people shooting up drugs or, vagrants coming into that room, so we keep it locked. Thank goodness my husband worked for the government. He knew who to call, and the next time we were there, the door was unlocked, and it has remained unlocked. So, But one of the examples that we had that was really interesting was Chicago O'Hare Airport has a first aid station that we discovered has a single toilet room. So we would go into the first aid station, we'd say, we're here because we need to use the restroom. We'd go in, and when we were ready to go out, we realized that there are no paddles, no things to turn on the water. They're gone. So I walked out and I said, do you realize there are no things to turn it on and off? How do people wash their hands? She says, well, we'll give you the paddles. She says, we have to take them off because people dilute their urine for test, for drug testing. I'm telling you. The other time we had a neat experience was in Baltimore, BWI, and they didn't have any unisex restrooms, so we ended up going down to the police detention center where they transferred prisoners, and we were with the kids and they were like 10, 12 years old, and we had to go down there. We had to be patted down before we could get in. The kids had to sit out in the lobby while they escorted us and waited outside the door. And then, so I'm never surprised. And I know some of you may be thinking, I don't want to have to deal with this kind of stuff. But it actually makes very interesting conversation when you talk to people. You ever wonder about what am I going to talk to people about? I mean, here you're finding this very interesting. Well, this is what life is. And I guess I'm try to be flexible enough. I guess there was a quote, "Blessed are the flexible, for they will not be bent out of shape." So, any other?
I got a question.
Sure.
When you're cruising like that, can you use a regular wheelchair there?
Oh my gosh, the place is so accessible.
Okay.
Everything. Doors open, they have you walk through and the doors open. You have,
Is that on all the ships or just the newer ones?
well, I think, we've been traveling for like 15 years and they're accessible. I mean, they really are.
Being that way, we took a cruise in 2000. I don't remember that. Of course, we weren't dealing with that back then, but
yeah.
How about trains?
I haven't been on a train. I'd like to do that, but my husband is not thrilled with trains. So I'm gonna try. I think I might work on it. We're gonna be married 45 years. I figure I can start asking a few things. Yes. Well, let me do first.
I have a question on cruising. We had a really horrible experience on a Costa cruise line. My son was in a wheelchair. It was just horrible. The elevators were locked. I mean, nothing worked. And I don't know. I think it's an Italian cruise ship, maybe. And
Well, that's a Costa Concordia. That was.
I know. And I was going,
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know if that was the reason. It was just horrible.
We've gone on Princess, Holland America, and Celebrity. I loved them all. They were all accessible. They're just phenomenal. We tend to go on Celebrity a little bit more because the destinations are where we want. We're going to the Caribbean, and we've been there how many times, but we don't care. In fact, sometimes we don't even get off the ship. This is the first, my husband just retired in June, so for him to go on these cruises was not only a vacation in terms of me, but it was a vacation from work because nobody could get to him. And although we did check email, I mean, he just unplugged, and it was really nice. So I can only imagine right now he's suffering with back problems, and he's having a cortisone shot on Monday. So keep your fingers crossed, because I'm starting to ask questions like, what's going to happen when if I need extra help, or who's going to be able to lift me if I want to, taking a shower? Are we going to need to get somebody in the house? what are we gonna do when the people that help me might not be available? So, you know, I'm starting to strategize. I'm not getting upset about it because what it is, it is. If I need to find a third string because my first and second string people are out of town or not available, I will find somebody. It's part of living. You know, it's a problem I have to solve. So I'm sorry you had a terrible experience because, you know, that can freak you out and not say, I'm never doing that again. But I have never had a bad experience, and people have been nothing but kind in terms of getting me off, even when the gangway was not accessible. I mean, there were places where they had steps going down. And now they all have ramps, so they don't have steps. But even if they had steps, they would carry me down in the scooter and make sure I was comfortable. There were like people all around me, so that if nobody would tip.
But you're small.
Yeah.
You know, a heavy person, they would not be carrying down those steps.
You might have to figure out a different way. You're right. But they do have wheelchairs. And one of the things, like if you could make arrangements from, let's say we fly to Fort Lauderdale. In Fort Lauderdale, you could rent a wheelchair or a scooter and have it brought to the ship. Now, if you go on like this escorted tour that we're going to go to Alaska, my husband and I, with anybody who would like to join us, they'll make the arrangements. If you need a CPAP machine, or if you need what else? A walker. Well, I think you probably take your walker with you, and you can take all of these things with you. The scooter I fly with is smaller than the one I came on. It's a travel scooter, and they take it down into the belly where the luggage is. I think if you were dealing with someone who was larger, I think you're probably going to have some other ideas. And I am always available. I gave you my phone number. Did you get the little card with the? No. Oh, they're up here. But it's a little inspirational saying, and on the back of it is all my information. You can write me. You can call me. You can send me an email. I will be happy to answer any questions, travel related, home accessibility. You know, think of me as a friend, because I do this for people all the time. And I think people with MS sometimes don't. Hello.
Yeah.
It's breaking now. Maggie.
Usually it comes right back on.
It does? Okay. Well,
Normally, it doesn't sound like it's doing it
Now
now.
we ran out of juice.
No.
Time's up.
Time's up, all right. Boy, that was a way to pull the plug back. You should have just gone like this, and I would have shut up. No, but I am your friend. I mean, please, use me if you have a question. It helps me because, as I was saying, people with MS don't always do as well as I'm doing. And I feel like this is my chance to give back to the world. I'm clearly not going to drive over here and, attend meetings because it's just too much. But I'm certainly available by home phone, and I'm there all the time. Yes.
Do you drive?
No, haven't driven since September of 1985. Oh, Chris, thank you. Andrew would be so happy. He's an engineer, by the way. So, yes.
I had a question about shore excursions.
Yes.
How can those be managed if you can't, if you're not ambulatory, if you need a walker
Well,
or wheelchair or whatever?
Well, you have to kind of do your homework, and when you do make the arrangements for the shore excursions, if you're working with a travel agent, and I would encourage you, it may cost a little more, but at least they're your go-to person. And for example, on the Alaska tour, one of the things I'd really like to do is go on a helicopter ride over the glaciers. I know it's not a normal thing for them to help somebody with a disability, but I'm going to ask the people at Middleton Travel to figure it out for me. They know these people, they know their business, and in fact, I want to tell you something. My husband and I this year, we decided late. We didn't think it was late, but by the time we were making reservations for this cruise we're taking, there were no handicap rooms available. And we had a very specific time period we had available. And I was really, you know, and everybody, because there's 5 of us, or 4 of us, my mother, my sister-in-law, and Dave and I was feeling like, you know, here again, I screw up everybody's plans because they need handicapped housing, you know, handicapped place. So I called Mary Miller from Middleton Travel. And I said, Mary, they say there's nothing in handicapped cabins. Can you check this out for me? And within 2 hours, we had a booked flight. Because other, you know, people hold cabins, and if travel agencies hold a cabin, you can't get to them. But if you're part of a travel agent consortium or, you know, group, you can always, you have colleagues you can call and say, do you have any left? Do you have any left? And she found one for us. And she found the right kind of cabins from my mother and sister-in-law who share one. So I let them make the arrangements. But there have been times when we've gone and talked to like the concierge. There is a whole office for excursions. So if you want to make arrangements, hopefully they'll be able to help you. But it would be easier if somebody else made them for you. Who knows what your limitations are. Yes?
How do you get from the airport to the ship?
We take a cab. They have accessible cabs.
Well, in
Or buses.
this horrible experience that we had,
Mhm.
they were busing everybody from the airport to the ship and back. And like 3 days before we got off the ship, I kept going to the concierge saying, do you have arrangements for my son to get to the airport? Well, ask that person, ask that person in the yellow shirt, you know. Nobody was giving me any answers. And when we got on shore, there was no transportation for him. Everybody was sitting in buses, and he's wheeling around in the parking lot. And they want me to get on this bus. I said, I am not getting on this bus until you make arrangements for him. I had asked for days prior to. I mean, this is another Concord, what Costa, anything.
I've never had that experience. In fact, the places where we go and we load at Port Everglades, which is the port in Fort Lauderdale that we go to, there are several cruise ships there. And it is, I mean, they have lines and they get you through so quickly you cannot believe it. And they're always dock workers who are loading your suitcases. And once we get to the airport, usually what we do is we go the night before, we stay over, and then we take their courtesy bus to the cruise area, to Port Everglades. And yeah, my husband sometimes has to help lift me onto these courtesy buses, but a lot of times they have lifts on them. And if you really feel uncomfortable having somebody, you know, carry you, or, you know, I mean, you're right, I am small, and that my husband doesn't let me eat much, but, you know, I try and keep my, you know, I've always been little. I was 88 pounds when we got married, so I'm I mean, blowing away in a wind. So, I think you know, I'm sorry you had such a bad experience, because usually these are like down to the, you know, infinitesimal. My sister-in-law is very obsessive compulsive. She you know, starts worrying about disembarking 3 days before we're there, and it puts her to you know, she just calms down because they, you know, at this, you have to be here at 10 o'clock, then we'll take your group, then we take this group, and it goes like clockwork. In fact, we're always amazed. My husband's an administrator, and he is extremely impressed, especially with celebrity. There's not a lot of waiting, that everybody knows what the drill is, and, you know, getting off the ship was like 20 minutes. And they had couple thousand people, well, 1,500, 2,000 people. Because they got to get them out and everything refurbished, and then later that afternoon, another group comes in. It's a business. So there always are wheelchair things available. You might have to wait a few minutes if, for some reason, there isn't one there at the dock, but I would be upset. I would be very upset if that happened. Now you give me something else to worry about. No, yeah, I know. That's another thing. Close off your mind to things that might, I think when I was 60, I look back and I said, what would I like to tell my younger Shelley that I've learned already in 60 years? And one of them was, don't worry about things that might happen, because if they have happened, they're not nearly as bad. I mean, I'm in a wheelchair, big deal. I don't miss much. And if they did happen, they were never as bad as I thought, and some of the things never happened. Why would I ever waste time on worrying when it takes away from the time when I can enjoy my life? We all have struggles, so, it's how you decide to handle them. We get up in the morning and say, oh God, arthritis, my shoulder, yeah, it's tough. But is that how you want to live your life? You get up and say, you know what, I'm still here, I'm gonna make this a good day. I know it isn't always easy, and if some of you read my column in the newspaper, did anybody see about shingles and depression?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
This is who I usually am. But I went into the deepest depression, and I'm going to end with this, because it taught me a lot about myself. And I was severely depressed, so depressed that I was having very scary and dark thoughts, which I'm sure, I can't imagine that there's somebody in this room doesn't identify with that, because life hasn't been what I thought it was going to be, and it's harder than I let on. But I've learned that, I can let somebody be there to hug me and hold me when I'm going through a bad time, just like I've been there to hug them and hold them when they're having a bad time. So it's just asking for help, but it's also giving yourself permission to get the help you need. And if you're depressed, or if you're unhappy, or if you're in pain, speak up and keep working until you get it resolved. And if you need help, tell someone else to help you. Please help you, because I admitted myself to the psych ward, and I got medication to help me sleep, and I got talk therapy to help me work out some of the frustrations of living a life that's, I didn't deserve this. We're getting older. I mean, I'm a lot older physically than many of you, but I'm going to learn this lesson in this lifetime, because I don't want to come back like this again. Anyway, it's been wonderful. I hope I thank you for staying when the weather is predictably getting worse, but I thank you for coming and staying and being such a wonderful audience.
Could I just ask a question? And I am open to any suggestion. I've got arthritis, and my limitations will probably increase as the disease progresses. But right now, what I'm having an issue with is, how do people do their laundry?
Okay, Annie, you're right. That's a great question.
Why?
Do your laundry.
How do you carry your laundry basket into where you do your laundry, and how do you get the stuff back in your bedroom so you can fold it if you can't pick it up?
We got a basket with wheels on
How do you
That you use for a
strip-
laundry basket?
How do you strip your bed? How do you make your bed?
Yeah.
Making the bed.
Ask your husband to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is, if you've got them.
That's a challenge.
Shut
It
the
is.
door.
Shut the door, I like that. You know, if you're not wanting to invite anybody over because you're not making, you know, your bedroom's a mess, close the darn door.
Yeah.
I just like with teenagers, if it's upsetting you to see their room, close the door.
That's what my husband.
Yeah, but yeah, I like your idea of the cart. The cart. A lot of the some of the magazines have them, and some of like Bed Bath and Beyond might have something like that. Go on the internet if you use the internet. Laundry basket on wheels. I think like Golden Violin is another one, and independent living aids. There are a lot of Active Forever is a portal where they have all kinds of products like this. And so that would be one thing. I will tell you, when Andrew was 5 years old, I needed him to help me carry the laundry. So what he figured out is he got belts, and he hooked the holes, and he pulled the belt, and he hooked 2 baskets or 3 baskets together, and so he pulled a train.
This is the son that's an engineer now?
Yeah,
Started early.
he started early. So, you know, you can figure things out, and you can ask people. I think that's a wonderful idea. In fact, maybe one of your senior center meetings, you might want to say, you know, what are we going to do to make life easier? What, you know, because your idea of not everybody thinks of the wheel laundry basket. Making the bed. Forget the,
Fitted sheets?
well, you could do that. You could forget that. That,
They're hard to get off.
they are very hard.
And
They're,
put on.
they are. I have one solution for that, but I will tell you, one of the things, your bedspread. Forget the bedspread. Get a duvet, get a blanket with a duvet covering on it, so it can look pretty. You spread it out. There's no lifting or anything. And one of my readers said they put a button in the middle so that they know where the middle is, so they don't have to keep going back and forth to see if it's over. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, really ridiculously simple things can make a difference. Does anybody know about SAIL, S-A-I-L? It is an acronym for Seniors, S-A, Seniors Active Independent Living. Seniors Active Independent Living. It is an organization that helps people in Dane County. In fact, you might want to have somebody come here and talk about it, because it's a marvelous service. My husband and I take advantage of it. I think it's like $330 a year, so it's like $1 a day. And they have concierge service. So when you're a member, you not only have social events where they take you in a bus to like Fort Atkinson for a play and lunch, and then they bring you home. So somewhat a little bit like a senior center, but they also have all of the names of vetted plumbers, electricians, people that can help you with window washing, and they have someone on staff who helps with computers. So we had somebody come out a couple weeks ago to set up our wireless printers, and it didn't cost us anything. Now, some of the vendors you have to pay for. I mean, like the plumber and the electrician, but they are vetted, so they will not take advantage of you. They have proven, or they've been recommended by somebody. They have mattress flipping. They have people who will drive you for rides, other volunteers for free. It's a wonderful thing, and the reason it was developed is so that people like us who can't, we want to live independently, we want to live in our homes, but sometimes we need help because we can't change the light bulb that's up there. They might send a volunteer handyman to come and help you at no cost. So I think they're great. And look on SAIL in the internet and you will find them. And I will leave the information with Becky because I think this is a great organization that some of you might find very helpful. Thank you. I hope I get to see some of you again. If there's anything I can do, let me know. Thank you.
Do you want to pass
I should fall, progressive